Who are Eros and Psyche? How do they affect your relationships? Let's find out. What is up, alienARMy? I am Oculus, the alien next door, purveyor of esoteric lore. And on this channel, we discuss everything out of this world. So today's topic, we are going to be diving into astrology, into the asteroids of Eros and Psyche. So we are going to be exploring the mythology behind Eros and Psyche. We're going to tap a little into the astronomy of Eros and Psyche. And of course, we're going to be tuning into the astrology of Eros and Psyche and what these two asteroids mean for you and your relationships in your natal chart. So let's get into it. Astronomically, Eros and Psyche are two asteroids that are located in our solar system. Eros is located within the orbit of Mars in the inner orbit, and Psyche is located in the asteroid belt betwixt Mars and Jupiter. Now, the asteroid Psyche was first discovered on March 17th, 1852 by Italian astronomer, and I'm so gonna butcher this name, Annibale di Gasparis. And so he decided to name this asteroid after the Greek mythological figure Psyche. Eros was discovered on August 13th, 1898 by Carl Gustav Witt. These two asteroids do have mythological connotations, as do mostly every placement in astrology. So let's get started with the mythological tale of Eros and Psyche. So the story of Eros and Psyche is derived from a novel composed in approximately 2 AD by an author named Apuleius. This novel was called Metamorphosis and is also known as The Golden Ass. Hey, I didn't name it. This novel is about the main character's adventures in trying to see and practice magic in his everyday life. It is in book 4 of this novel where we are finally introduced to Eros and Psyche. Now, as this book was written in the ancient Roman Empire, these characters are referred to as Psyche and Cupid, Eros being the eventual Greek translation from Cupid to Eros. So I will just be saying Eros here, but know that Eros is also known as Cupid. The name Psyche roughly translates into meaning soul or spirit, and she was oftentimes portrayed as a butterfly. The name Cupid means passion or love. Psyche was a princess, a mortal woman born to a king and queen, and she was one of 3 daughters. Psyche was so beautiful that she rivaled the beauty of the goddess Venus, or Aphrodite. Her beauty was such that the people who would attend to the shrines of Venus and worship her and bring her gifts actually started visiting Psyche at her palace and bringing their attentions to her instead. Venus, understandably, as she is known as the goddess of love, was so enraged by this that she demanded that her son Cupid, Eros, use his powers on Psyche so that she would fall in love with a vile beast. So Eros, wanting to be a good son, did as his mother requested and went down to Earth to visit Psyche. Now, there are many different variations of this story, but it is purported that Cupid, Eros, went and sprinkled his magical powder upon her so that she would become a man repellent, basically. That he himself was pricked by one of his own arrows of instantaneous love, and he too fell in love with her at first sight. So Venus's plan kind of backfired. The story goes that he felt so bad about what he had done that he kind of got discombobulated and pricked her with his own arrow of instantaneous love as well. Of course, he didn't tell this to Venus. So after a while, Psyche's 2 sisters found love, got married, and had lavish weddings. Psyche still remained alone. So her parents consulted with an oracle who said that Psyche would never marry a mortal man and that only a repulsive beast would take her as his wife. Psyche was to trek along a mountainside and climb to the top of the mountain where this creature would take her away. Upon walking up this mountain, the god Zephyr, he of the gentle breezes, carried her away to a beautiful palace where her new husband awaited her. Here she was offered food, riches, and a beautiful place to call her home. One condition of this marriage and opulent lifestyle, however, was that she would be visited by her husband every night, but she was never allowed to see his face. So Psyche lived like this for a while, but eventually she grew bored and lonely, and she asked to seek the company of her two sisters. So when her two sisters arrived at this opulent palace and saw her lavish lifestyle, they became pretty jealous. And they insisted that Psyche must be living in grave danger if she had all of this beauty and opulence at her fingertips, but she was never allowed to see the face of her husband. They insisted that her husband must have malicious intentions if he was offering her all this, but yet he would never show his face. So they convinced Psyche to pull off a little plan. This plan was that the next evening, when her husband came to visit her in the depths of night, that she would have a lantern and a knife upon her, so that when he arrived, she would turn on the light, see who it was, and if need be, kill him. The next time Psyche's husband called upon her, she carried out her plan and turned on the lantern to see who exactly it was that had been visiting her this whole time. She saw that it was not a horrible beast. In fact, it was Eros, a beautiful god who had been visiting her and who had married her and who had been her husband the whole time. Now, this shocked Eros. He was like, "What the fuck? Why are you shining this light in my face?" And him, being a god, and he was able to fly on his angelic wings, flew out the window in what I guess was shock, fright, like, oh shit, what just happened? He wanted to get away. Psyche, being a mortal woman, went to the window and leapt out of it, hoping to follow behind her husband. But as she was immortal, she simply fell to the ground and was knocked unconscious. When she awoke, she found herself back near her former home on Earth, and she was so distraught that she went to pay a visit to the goddess Venus. Oh, the irony. And pleaded for help. Venus gave her a series of tasks to complete in order to remedy her situation. Now, Venus gave her these tasks kind of like, you're never going to be able to do this. So it was sort of like a subliminal fuck you. One of these tasks involved paying a visit to the goddess Persephone, mistress of the underworld and wife of Hades. Psyche was to ask Persephone for a magical box full of makeup, which she was instructed not to open and just bring the box to Venus. So Psyche, being curiouser and curiouser, opened the box anyway and found nothing but darkness, which put her into a deep slumber. Eros, meanwhile, had been witness to all this, and through his unbridled passion and love for Psyche, he wanted to put a stop to this, so he awakened her. He told her, "Bring the box to Venus and I will handle the rest." Eros appealed to Zeus, king of the gods, for help in this situation. And he appealed to Zeus so poetically that Zeus was like, "Damn, homie, you sprung." And so he granted this pardon. Psyche was given a chalice of ambrosia, liquid of the gods, which brought immortality. And she transformed from a mortal woman into a goddess. Zeus united Eros and Psyche in an eternal marriage, and the rest is history. So, that was a little bit of an elaborate tale, but it helps to tell you this so you can understand how Eros and Psyche operate in your natal chart. So as we see Psyche, meaning soul or spirit, also with the connotation with a butterfly, we see that she had a transformation from a mortal woman into a goddess. She fell in love with someone, and for her love for this person, this god, she wanted to transform herself and complete these certain tasks that Venus laid out for her so that she could prove her dedication and her willingness to step up to the plate in order to gain what her soul wanted, which was that soul bond with Eros. Now, Eros, being already godly, had an ego moment where his unbridled passion and lust and love, his material realm feelings for Psyche, caused him to act out and defy his mother. He went against her back and he appealed to Zeus, the highest god there was. And he said, listen, I want that, hook it up. So Eros in the astrology chart is showing what type of risks we are willing to take for our passions in our relationships. Now, how these two work together, it is purported that one wants to look at their Eros sign in alignment with their partner's Psyche sign and vice versa. So we're not comparing two Eros signs here. We're not comparing two Psyche signs here. We're comparing Eros in partner A to Psyche in partner B. It can work many different ways. If you have a similar Eros nature and a similar Psyche nature as your partner, you're kind of going to be in alignment with your passions in your relationship and in your soul drive in your relationships, how you want to transform yourself for the betterment of the relationship as a whole. So you might have those similarities, but really the compatibility is betwixt Eros and Psyche. So Psyche in the natal chart is how one is going to strive to become a better person for the sake of inviting this soul love. They are going to transform themselves from a mortal human in love, let's say, to what some would call agape. Probably butchered that too, but yeah. So agape is a form of love which is purported to be the highest form of love because it occurs on a soul level. It is known as the love expression that the universe, all that is, God, source, however you want to look at it, loves all of his creations. So when someone is in that benevolent state of all-encompassing love, that is what the goal of a mortal relationship kind of is. You want to ascend from that third dimensional relationship frivolity, and you want to have this everlasting soul bond. With Eros, Cupid, what happened here is that he was willing to make a plea to Zeus in order to save his beloved and have her actually be with him, because he saw that she had transformed herself into someone that truly wanted to be with him, even though she kind of broke the rules and she lit the lantern to see his face even when she was told not to. That was something that her soul told her to do, because it knew that the highest good for both of them was that she had to go through that. She had to see who her husband really was, and she had to see that her husband would accept her as she grew and evolved. So with Eros in the natal chart, if we look at Eros's actions, he defied his mother, the Venus, the goddess of love, and he said, listen, I love this woman, even though that's a mortal woman and I'm a god, but that's what I want, that's what I decide. His passion, his desire just set off an emotional locomotive in him, and he said, you know what, this is what I want, I'm going for it, fuck what anyone thinks, I'm just gonna do it, because he felt that passionately for Psyche. So when we want to look at these two in our natal chart, we can see Psyche as this is how our soul expresses the growth for the betterment of the relationship, that sort of soul love, how one is going to express themselves in their relationship from a higher level, how they're going to grow and transform themselves for the betterment of the relationship. And Eros in our natal chart is going to show us what shit we are not going to put up with and what we are passionate about in a relationship. This is where someone in a relationship is going to feel so vehemently about that they are not going to take no for an answer, and they're just going to go full throttle. This is what I want. This is how I'm going to do it. That type of energy. So Psyche is more of a spiritual relationship concept, and Eros is more of like that physical drive in the relationship. So this can be passion, sex, obviously, and how one goes about attaining their love or attaining their relationship power. So Eros is going to be how we dynamically drive our relationships, what turns us on, and things like that. So you want to compare the two of these. You don't want to necessarily look at your Eros compared to your partner's Eros. You want to look at your Eros compared to your partner's Psyche, because these are the yin and the yang of the relationship dynamic. This is the soul-driven part of the relationship, and this is the ego-driven, passionate, burning, hot, desire-y, fiery part of the relationship. And when the two of these meet, now we have this burning desire, passion, Eros, like, yes, adding fuel to the soul for the soul to grow and expand, for the acceleration of the journey of that relationship on a spiritual level. Eros and Psyche can be found in the chart selector that I'm going to leave below, and I will also leave how you find these signs, because these asteroids don't typically come up in standard charts, so you kind of have to search for them. So I will have that listed below, how you can find your Eros and Psyche sign. Now also you want to look at the house placement. So the birth time, in my opinion, is quite important, just because they're asteroids and they're not considered major players in the ballpark of the natal chart. So you want to definitely know what house that they are in, because that's going to help give you more of an inclination of how the Eros and Psyche are going to function in your chart and your partner's chart. So that was today's astrological chit chat regarding Eros and Psyche. I am Oculus, the alien next door, and we will chit chat again soon.